today's episode, Liz and I chat with life and relationship coach Maggie Reyes, who focuses primarily on being a marriage mentor for women. We review 5 power questions that Maggie wishes every woman was aware of for improving their marriages, starting today, from finding meaning to asking yourself what you want instead. Maggie Reyes is a master's certified life coach and modern marriage mentor who specializes in helping driven, ambitious women create their best marriages without waiting for their partners to change or adding more work to their lives. She is the creator of the Marriage MBA program, a 6-month mentorship in creating a successful marriage using principles from positive psychology, cognitive science, and simple coaching tools that you can learn today and apply tomorrow. Maggie is the author of the best-selling Questions for Couples journal, which has over 3,000 4-star ratings on Amazon. And she's the host of the Marriage Life Coach podcast. When she isn't teaching or coaching, she loves obsessing over Formula One racing, Bridgerton, reading fan fiction, romance novels, and watching superhero movies and Mexican rom-coms with her hubby. If you want to learn how to stop doing the things that poison the love in a relationship and start doing the things that make love stronger, you can find the tools to create your best marriage at maggiereyes.com. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Stronger Marriage Connection. We've got the psychologist and the professor. I am Dr. Liz along with Dr. Dave, and we have dedicated our life's work to bringing you the best we have in valid marital research, along with a few tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. If you happen to be lacking a little enthusiasm for marriage, well, allow today's guest to share some of hers with you, because she's got plenty for all of us. I have followed Maggie Reyes for a handful of years. She is a marriage mentor for women. Today's segment is on how a woman can have a massive impact on her relationship without changing her husband. Welcome to Stronger Marriage Connection, Maggie.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Such a treat. Oh, I'm just getting back to my note here. Your goal, Maggie, is to give smart, successful, soulful women the tools to create healthier and happier marriages. Why just women? And can one really change a marriage, one person?
Yeah, I love that question. Let's start with the second part. So all of the work that I do is based in systems theory and psychology. When one element of a system changes, the other elements in that system respond to that change. So what happens is if a woman becomes more empowered, more loving, more kind, just contributes more of what she wants to experience in her relationship, her partner doesn't have to be in the session with her to just be responding differently to what she is presenting. So that's basically what it's based on, what the work that I do is about. And then why women, it sort of happened serendipitously. I just went to life coach training and I was working with individuals when I was in my training and I really liked it. And then it sort of evolved to being on purpose, where there's so many women who would like to either do couples counseling or couples therapy or do things with their partners. And for whatever reasons, their partners are just not available for that experience. And they still want a stronger marriage. They still want to do something to make it better. So I'm a big believer that we get to have the marriages we want to have, that we get to contribute the way we want to contribute, that we get to become leaders in our emotional life. And so that's what I do. I help women who want that kind of support get that kind of support.
I love it. Very good. Women really are, I think, the keepers of their relationships also. They're a powerhouse.
I mean, they shouldn't have to be, but they are.
Yeah. If we use our power wisely, right? I've used it unwisely and I've used it wisely. I see the difference. You don't have to convince me. I get it.
Totally.
Yeah, Maggie, we're so grateful to have you and your expertise on today, Maggie, talking about this topic. I can certainly go along with you that your Thriving coaching program is for women, Maggie, but I must say your advice is great for both partners, right? We assume that you haven't always been a marriage mentor, though, right? Tell us a little bit about your background and how you became a marriage mentor for women.
Totally. So I used to work in human resources. So I always joke around that I've been talking people off ledges my whole career, just different ones. So I worked in a law firm. I worked in the cruise industry. I worked my way up from receptionist to training director at the law firm. And then I did recruiting in Miami, which is where I live, is the cruise capital of the world. So I worked in the cruise industry for quite a while. And I did that. And then I met my husband. And I had a really interesting, both sad and happy thing happen. Part of it was happy, part of it was sad. It was one of those key moments, turning points in my life when I felt an incredible sense of rightness. And some people feel that with their kids, with their partner, with a hobby, with their career. I really felt it so strongly with my husband that everything that didn't feel that way became very apparent in my life very quickly. And that's the sad part. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I should be in this job anymore. I don't know if I should do this way anymore. And I started, oh my gosh, I took aptitude tests. I went to workshops. I downloaded all the things about the Strengths Finder and all the different types of things that you could find. And over the course of just a couple of years of investigation and of questioning, I just happened upon life coaching. I'm like, what is that? Can I do that? Let me find out more. And that's really, it was so interesting that I then decided to specialize in marriage coaching because my husband was such an integral part in me figuring out that I wanted to do something different with my life.
Yeah,
So
that's
he was
great.
the inspiration behind that.
Yeah.
Marriage really does change us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we want it to change us for the better.
Yes.
You've created these 5 power questions, Maggie, that you wish every woman knew, since these 5 questions are the key for women improving their marriages starting now. So for starters, why are questions even more powerful than positive statements?
I think questions open our minds to new ideas. So there's a saying, I think it's Tony Robbins, but it's something like, you upgrade the quality of your life when you upgrade the quality of your questions. And if you think about that, I was talking to a friend about this the other day, and the example I gave her is like, imagine you wanted to make $100 and you asked your brain, how can I make $100? I could bake some cookies, maybe I'll make some cupcakes for the neighborhood. But imagine if you asked your brain, I want to make $1 million. Your brain would just supply you different answers. It's like, oh, would I buy a franchise? Would I need to get a small business loan? The way you ask the question and frame the question just opens your creativity, your resourcefulness in so many ways that are unanticipated and can be amazing. And a lot of the times, and I've done this too, we ask ourselves questions that are limiting, that actually bring us back to our suffering. Why is this happening to me? There's no great answer. No one has the answer, right? It's like, but if we ask, how can I experience something different? Then our brain can give us 17 different ways that we could experience something different.
Mm-hmm. The brain is powerful that way.
Yeah, it's spot on, Maggie. I think with what we're talking about with these questions, all right, if we go through some of these questions, you have these 5 questions. The first question you suggest, Maggie, is this: what would blank, fill in the blank, do now? And the blank is the energy you want to bring to a situation. So then the question becomes, what would courage do now? Or what would confidence do now? Or compassion? Or what would love do now? Tell us about this self-coaching exercise.
Yeah, I just think it's so important to lean towards either our values or the emotions we most want to feel or who we want to embody. And when we do that, it informs how we relate to our partners. So a lot of times we lead unconsciously with our wounds. We were hurt in some way, whether by our partners or by other parts of our life. And then we just react instinctively without taking a moment to pause and breathe and ask, who do I want to be here? What part of me do I want to lead this? And just having one little question in your back pocket, like, wait, if I trusted my partner, what question would I ask now? If I needed reassurance, what question would I ask now? If I was trying to love and support myself or love and support my partner, what would I do next? It just opens up something that isn't present without that intention behind it.
Yeah, love that.
Sorry, Dave, it's a little bit like then, Maggie, how do I want to show up? How do I want to, right? How do I want to show up here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, Maggie, the second question is, what would my highest and best self do in this situation? So, I mean, let's face it, Maggie, it's not always easy to be the bigger person. You say that wallowing is okay for a little bit, but then comes a time to take action. Can you give us an example of that?
Yeah. So first of all, one of the things that I strongly believe in coaching, mentoring, any of the work that I do is helping anyone who's listening to us today, anyone who works with any one of us, helping them return to their wisdom. So even though we like evidence-based interventions, we love research, we love all these things, what does your highest inner wisdom say? And how many of us, if we don't have someone like one of us prompting the person, will ask ourselves, what do I really want? What does my highest inner wisdom think is a good idea here? So I think it's so important to point back to that over and over again, even though you can't and should not always be the bigger person. Sometimes being the smaller person is the most powerful and important thing that you can do, to just let that be there and be loved in your humanity when you make mistakes. But I think it's just so important to tune into that part of you that is like, wait, but if I was generous in my interpretation of what happened today, how would I handle this? And one of the things I like to tell people, in my opinion, is that generosity is the highest form of love. When we're loving when the person doesn't deserve it, when we're kind when the other person hasn't earned it. If we're generous, that is the highest form of love that we can practice. And it's not always appropriate to be generous, right? So we have to check in with ourselves and say, is this an opportunity to be generous, or is this an opportunity to say no, set a boundary, or do something else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It reminds me, this question of what would my highest and best self do in this situation reminds me of a question I've always asked. I've asked others, and that is, what would you do if you give your whole heart to this person or the situation, right? What would it look like if you gave your whole heart? And then what would occur to you to do or to say in that situation? So I love this, because it's like, okay, what my highest self, my best self, what would they do and show up in the situation? Absolutely love it. Great second question.
Thanks.
And in question 3, Maggie, you suggest replacing why with how. So how? Just how alone is powerful. Why is this not happening for me versus how could I make this happen for me?
Yeah. And I think why it'd be great when we want to do something like a root cause analysis, when we want to get to like the bottom of something. We want to check, well, why is that? And why is that? So why has a place in life? Most of us just don't use it well. So it does have a place. It is useful. Most of us left to our own devices aren't using it in its best capacity. But how? It's like, what would it look like? And oftentimes I'll ask my clients, like, what would it look like if you spoke to each other as if you loved each other? Tell me how. It's like, well, I'd be calmer. Maybe I'd ask questions. Maybe I wouldn't go to my initial reaction. When we're exploring the how, suddenly again, something opens up that wasn't there before. And that's always my goal, is like, where can we add love, care, compassion to the relationship and how we're showing up? That's what all the questions are really for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Maggie, this fourth one, I love this, especially powerful. It's, what am I making this mean? I love that we attach meaning to whatever happens. It seems like in life. You have a great personal example of this. You mind sharing that?
Oh my gosh. Can you remind me what I said my example was? Let me see.
It was about the wedding ring and your husband said,
yeah. Oh, that was really heart-wrenching. So my husband is an engineer. He's very left brain. He's very direct. Like, he tells you what he means. You never have to wonder with him. I love this about him. There's no secondary meanings to things. He's just, what you see is what you get. And we had been engaged, and we thought it would be fun if I got an engagement ring and he got an engagement ring. Like, oh, so romantic. We're going to do this so cool. And then one day he said he was going to throw his engagement ring away. Please understand, I am Cuban. I am a Leo. I am melodrama is my middle name. I burst into tears. I was like, you're going to throw it away. How could you throw it away? What I made it mean was he was throwing away our love, our devotion, our connection. I mean, it had all these very telenovela-like meanings that I attached to this thing. And he was like, no, but I'm going to be your husband now. And that's the ring that matters. And he couldn't be more devoted, more loving, more everything you could imagine. And in his brain, it was just like, this chapter has ended and this chapter has begun. And now we move on. It was such an innocent, loving thing that he was doing that had none of the meanings that I was attaching to it. And it was such a lesson for me to ask him, and everybody listening, if you get one thing from today, ask your partner, what do you mean by that? Just ask them, what do you mean by that? It will save you like half the fights that you have.
Yeah. Hit pause as much as you can, right? And tell me more about that. What does that mean? Oh boy. Yeah, that's a good one, Maggie. And then the fifth question is to ask yourself, what do I want instead? You're always reminding us that the more precisely we can answer that question, the faster we're going to get there. Yeah.
Yes.
What do I want instead?
I think it's so important to connect with our desires, especially humans that are socialized as women are often socialized to tamp down, suppress, or not honor our desires, to not have any, to live in service to other people. It's a common cultural narrative that it's like the ocean that we swim in. It's like, what, I get to have a desire? And very often in my coaching practice, what I see is women who have not connected their desires for decades sometimes and asking, what do you want? Without prioritizing whether it's their partner, their kids, their job, their volunteer commitments, their other things that have been really, really important in their life, where they get to have equal importance to these other things. It doesn't mean that those things don't matter. It's just, where do they come in those other things? So a constant question is, what do I want? And what do I want instead of what I have right now?
Very good. All right. So it's 5 questions. What would blank do now? The energy, courage, compassion, love. What would love do now? What would my highest and best self do in this situation? How versus why? What am I making this mean? And what do I want instead? Love those. So Maggie, what now about the conversations and questions that we're not having? What specific areas of concern weigh on you as a marriage mentor?
So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. There's one thing that I ask myself, what are the conversations we're not having about marriage, just as a culture, as a society, amongst our friends? And one of the things that I've seen so much, even in relatively good situations, is talking about grief and the grief of the marriage we thought we were going to have versus the marriage we have, or the grief of like the kids we thought we were going to have. And maybe we thought they were going to be superstars in some way. And then they have challenges we weren't expecting. And we sort of don't go there because we don't even know what to say, what to do, or is there a place for me to put that grief? Can I really love this person and also grieve this idea that I grew up having? And I find that that's one of the most nuanced conversations I've been having over the last couple of years with my clients. They'll come to me with different things and I'll say, well, have you processed the grief around that? And they're like, I don't even know what are you talking about? But obviously there is a loss and there is a grief. And again, it could be you love your kids, you love your partner, but there's something that didn't quite happen the way you wished it would, or you longed it would, or you craved it would. And I really just want to give everyone who's listening space to say you can grieve that and love the people in your life at the same time. It doesn't mean anything bad about you.
Maggie, does an experience or a client come to mind where you had to ask her, what have you grieved that?
Yeah, actually yesterday. Yeah. Someone I was coaching decided not to have kids and loves her decision and feels very anchored in why she made that choice and all of those things. And yet she didn't know how to process this feeling of like, I don't want to change my mind, but it also isn't how I thought my life was going to go. And I literally asked her, okay, can we make a space to just grieve that? And there's no timetable on grief. So you can see something, hear something, be present to something. All of a sudden it can knock on your door again. That's not a problem. It doesn't mean you should change your choice. It doesn't mean you made the wrong choice or a bad choice. You can be sad about something and still love your choice. So that's one example. Another example I like to give on the positive end of the spectrum is when I got married, I was so excited. I love my husband. I always joke I have a crush on my own husband. I have so much fun. And I grieved the end of my single life. Even as I was entering something I really wanted, that I was choosing, that I was happy about, I was like, oh, there's a whole chapter of my life that's ending. And I had these really mixed emotions that I never heard anybody talking about. So here we are talking about it.
Yeah. I use the word, talk about a Freudian slip. When I talk about who's coming to our wedding, I'd say, oh yeah, my aunt so-and-so is coming to the funeral.
Oh, wow.
Use the word funeral because of that very thing. It is a grief of one life. and the blossoming, burgeoning of this wonderful new life too. I get it.
Yeah.
That's an important thing for us, I think, to all grapple with and understand.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in.
Yeah. It makes me, let me ask you a question. This conversation makes me think of another aspect of this. It feels like early on in our marriage, probably even like the first decade, if something didn't go as planned or met my expectations, like, hey, our anniversary or Valentine's Day or a birthday or anyway, a getaway or something, and I had in my mind what it would be like. And I remember feeling like this sense of rejection and even resentment and like, feeling this hurt for a minute. But then I would often hold on to it instead of like feel it, but not follow it, not let it like take root inside of me. Mm-hmm. And I feel like over time that I've strived to do a better job of being like, okay, yeah, that may be painful and my expectations may not be met, but I'm not going to like hold it against my wife or play this silent treatment or just, be hurt inside and stew inside. Does that make sense? I'm learning to feel something, to maybe even mourn it, but then to let it go and to move on. Thoughts about that?
Yeah, I have 2 thoughts about it, actually. I love the way you said, feel it, but don't follow it. That's such a great way to remember to allow the feeling of disappointment, but then don't let it lead the rest of your interactions for the day, for the week, for the month, which is what most of us do when we don't sit and think about these things. And the other thing I wanted to say is we don't make a space to mourn it. So that's why we're making a space now to be like, I would have loved it if she would also be as into this thing as I am, or whatever it is. Like, we can have a space for ourselves to just be with that disappointment or with that feeling, whatever it may be. And because you used the word rejection when you were giving the example, here's another thing I don't think we're talking about, like in the conversations we're having about marriage. I was coaching on this a lot. I didn't know what it was. And I just started Googling, very basic. And I found something called rejection sensitivity. And I had never heard of it before, other than people were telling me what you just said, Dave. It's like, oh, this thing happened then, and I felt so upset about it. But on the big scheme of things, it wasn't actually a big deal in our relationship. But I felt terrible. This is kind of what I was hearing in different words. And then this rejection sensitivity is millions of people have it. And it's whenever you hear a no, instead of it just being a no, it feels like a rejection in your body. And people that have ADHD or are anywhere on the like the spectrum of different neurodivergences have a higher incidence of it than other people. And just knowing like, oh, when I hear a no, it feels a little different to me, but that doesn't mean we're doomed. It doesn't mean something terrible about our relationship. I just need to learn how to relate to that a little bit differently. That just opened my mind to like, whoa, this is important. We need to talk about this. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's just another thing for everybody that's listening to just keep in mind. If that happens to you, you'll still be okay.
Yeah. I love that. Thank you. That's very helpful. Yeah, Maggie. In your work with women who are motivated to turn their marriages around, is there a client or two, a situation that stands out to you who perhaps surprised even you with her marriage success?
Oh, I get surprised all the time. One of my favorite things that happens is when my clients will write to me after we've worked together. They're like, you're never going to believe what happened. And I'll give you 2 sort of opposite ends of the spectrum with that. One client I worked with for a whole year, and I call it, you clean up your side of the table. Like, you show up with love, you show up with kindness for the relationship you want, you work through the resentment. And a few months, maybe 5 or 6 months after we worked together, she sent me a note and she said, I'm getting divorced. And she said, the work that we did together was some of the most powerful work I could have ever done, because I would have spent the next 10 years trying. And knowing that I cleaned up my side of the table and knowing that I did everything that I could to make the relationship work, I'm leaving with such a peaceful heart and with so much like love and respect for my partner. Like, instead of leaving in anger and resentment, she's like, I just know we gave it our all. And that was a surprising yet beautiful outcome of seeing her really just do all the emotional work, that emotional heavy lifting of working through some of these feelings and clearing her side of the table and asking for the things she wants, finding out if her partner is interested in those things or not. So that was on that side of things. On the other side of things, this is one of just my favorite examples because it's so fun. So one of my clients hated having conversations about money with her husband. Lots of my clients have that issue, but this one in particular, we spent several weeks working through how to help her have a conversation without freaking out was the goal, which is like, how can I sit there with him and it doesn't become a fight? And we went through forgiveness work and mistakes she had made around money and how emotional she felt around things. And we just took it from a lot of different angles and trying to understand like his point of view on things and why his point of view. He was a very spreadsheet sort of let's analyze everything person. She's a very creative person. So she had a hard time just sitting and like focusing on all the different details that were very important to him. So we made a lot of space for her to just say, this is how he shows he cares about you. It's not to confuse you or to overwhelm you, which is to show he cares. So we did all of this stuff. We finished our work together several months later. I want everyone who's listening to imagine getting an email in your inbox that's just exclamation points. just as long as the eye can see exclamation points. So I open it up. She's like, you're never going to believe what happened. And she got the biggest raise of her career plus back pay because when she worked in having conversations with her husband without freaking out, she was also able to have conversations with her boss without freaking out. And it was such a beautiful celebration and joy of all the work that she had done to really become a person who could have whatever difficult conversation she needed to have and stay in her equanimity and stay in her highest and wisest self and all of those things. So that's another sort of fun one.
Ah, that is great. It is true, isn't it? As we work on marriages, we can't help but take those same skills, tools, and apply them to other relationships. It's a win-win. In your coaching program, you instruct us as women that there's an important distinction between solving a problem and managing one. And knowing that when we need to solve and knowing when we need to manage, that will make our relationships stronger.
Yes. So that is deeply inspired by the work of the Gottman Institute. I'm sure you must love them the way that I love them. They do evidence-based research on what works and what doesn't, right? So I have an intellectual crush on them as an entity. And so they have this research that says 67% of couples have unsolvable problems. So I was reading about this research and I was like, well, okay, so then what do you do with that? And I was like, oh, you either solve it or you manage it. And so I was like, oh, okay. So what do most of us do? We try to solve unsolvable problems all the time. So spenders marry savers, night owls marry early birds, Democrats marry Republicans, all these different things, right? And we try to change the person. We try to get them to be the way we are, as opposed to, no, this person likes to wake up early. This person likes to wake up late. I guess our dates are going to be during lunchtime, right? It's like, how do we manage that we have these differences versus trying to eliminate the difference?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a good point.
Good. Yeah, Maggie, we're at the point of the show really where we like to ask our listeners a couple questions. The first one is this: what is the key, do you feel like, is to a stronger marriage connection?
There's so many. I think I will always say the core is friendship. I definitely inspired by the research of the Gottman Institute. It's just like, we have evidence that the core is friendship. I like to call it sexy besties. So if you're feeling disconnected or like not strong for some reason, we want to check the sexy and we want to check the bestie. One of those things is going to be off. And then it tells us what to work on in our relationship together. And if I get to give two things, I'd say prioritizing it. Just like so many things are coming at us, so many requests from people. And now, 24/7 social media and emails and all these things. And it's like deciding my marriage matters. And then everything else works around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. Love it.
So women listening to our show today, and I think even a few men, are going to want to know where to find out more about you and your resources, Maggie.
Oh, sure. The best place is my website. It's maggiereyes.com. You can always see what I'm up to there. And from there, you can get my emails. You can find out what I'm teaching on or whatever concepts I'm sharing that week. That's the best way.
Nice. I love getting those little gifts of love in my email box, Maggie. Thank you.
And lastly, Maggie and Liz, our takeaways of the day. Let's start with you, Maggie. What's a one main message that you hope our listeners will take away from our discussion today?
that you have choices, that you can think about what you want in your relationship and then take positive forward action towards that. I think that's the core of everything that I teach. And if someone is listening to us today and feeling frustrated or feeling sad, if I could just be that voice in your ear that says you have choices, that would be the one.
Love it. Yeah. Liz, what about you?
Well, I love what you said earlier, Maggie, that generosity is the highest form of love. Being generous. And like you said, sometimes life doesn't call for that, right? But I think especially in love and in marriage, generosity is often, I think, the call of the day. So I love that. Dave, what about you? What's your takeaway of the day?
Yeah, I'm going to actually combine both of your takeaways. I love that generosity, Liz, and the choices, Maggie. I often call this, and it's been reiterated today, I think a challenge of a lifetime. There are probably many challenges of a lifetime. One of those has stuck in my mind lately, and it relates to what we're talking about today, is feeling disappointed, feeling stressed, feeling worried, feeling irritated, even feeling angry. All those, right, natural emotions, we're going to feel those in our relationships. I believe this is difficult. That's why it's the challenge of a lifetime, to feel all of that and still be kind. Be kind and still be generous. That I can feel disappointed and still be kind. I can still feel upset and stressed out, but I don't have to allow that feeling to overwhelm me and influence my behavior, the meanness, my tone of voice, all of those things. And I blow it all the time. That's why for me, it's a challenge of a lifetime, is to feel it, but not follow it, as we talked about it, and still choose to be kind.
I love that.
So good.
I asked Dr. John Gottman at the end of a seminar not all that long ago. I just said, who are these marriage masters? Because he discovered marriage masters amidst the marriage disasters, the couples who came into the Love Lab. Most of us are marriage disasters. And I was just curious about who they were. Do they have a certain background? Were they raised differently? And he just says we can't really find any rhyme or reason to them, except for just one thing, and that is that they're kind. They take a beat or a pause before responding, and they're typically kind to each other. I thought that was lovely.
Yeah, powerful. I love that, Liz. Well, Maggie, thank you for inspiring really all of us on the power that we have in our marriages and how one person can change the dynamics of that dance. So appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that does it for us. Our friends, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
And remember, it's the small things often that create a stronger marriage connection. Take care now.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.